Hello to you all once again, and welcome to FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner, and joining me for our new season of episodes once again is Steve Kern, my good friend and colleague. How you doing there, Steve? You're all geared up for another season?
I certainly am. Happy 2012 to everyone out there in FiST Chat land. Today we've really got something to sink your teeth into.
Absolutely, yes. I'm sure, many of you would have, had some New Year's resolutions, and, I'm sure we've had them as well. And a very, very common one, of course, is... going on a diet or become healthier, go to the gym, any one of those sort of variants of, getting healthy. But we've very popular, Ben, especially this time of year. Absolutely, but we've got the one that beats them all, because it does two things at once. Not only do you lose calories, but you also slow down your aging process. Now,
well, if you get the right diet.
Now, in the blog I'm writing this week, I've called it the Fountain of Youth diet, because, it's got to have some sort of catchy name to it. But, scientists in a study have found that if you eat less, keep the mind young, then you'll actually be saving the brain from the ravages of aging. So what do you think about that, Steve?
What do I think about that? Well, I was writing my blog, Ben, and I went back to FiST Chat episode 3, and that was all about human lifespans, and we talked about all sorts of wonderful technologies that would give us everlasting life, but we forgot diet.
How could we forget that? I mean, we covered well, it's a 15-minute episode. We just couldn't cram it all in, could we?
We probably couldn't, but diet is very important, as I think we've found in our research this week. Yeah. And in the best-known experiment, probably in the last 10 years, but these experiments have been going on for 50 or 60 years, mice fed an ultra-low-calorie diet live 30% longer. So if you're a human, if you know your lifespan would be around 70 or 80, they could well get you to 120. The Okinawans in the Japanese islands there live to 110 quite frequently.
And the Japanese have got the highest, age rate or whatever it is. They live the longest in the world, so they must be onto something. But
well, there is a rider on that, because over the last decade they've been adopting a more Western diet, and apparently their longevity's nosediving.
Okay, so forgive me for asking maybe the obvious question here, but this was something that came up that I was thinking about when I was writing my blog again, and I've mentioned it there. But if you're thinking of Western diets where there's a high prevalence of sugar, fat, salt consumption, isn't it really just a no-brainer that if you're going to be eating less of a typical Western diet, you are going to live longer, because you're taking in less of these types of materials into your body, and they're not swimming around in your body, clogging arteries and destroying organs and whatever else that they do.
Ben, that would be a one-page book. Do you think it would be a bestseller? Look, it makes a lot of sense, and I think you have to understand why eating less helps you to live longer. And there's two factors. One is that generally it lowers your metabolism. The lower your metabolism, the less replication you get in your body, less strain you put on your organs. So basically, you won't age so fast. And we're not talking about the ultra-low-calorie diets yet. We might get onto that in a bit. That's what those mice were on. But if you eat in moderation, and by today's standards, moderation is actually very small portions, you are going to be better off. And the second reason that you'll be better off is not just the metabolic reason, but for everything you underlined. You will have less salt. You will have less sugar. You will have less meat or protein in that diet. And, basically you will have less fat. And by reducing your intake of those, your body works less hard. And it's no surprise you'll have a whole lot less disease in your life, probably less chance of getting a cancer. And you're probably going to add 10, 15 years to your life. And the insurance companies know it.
And well, that's sobering. But I mean, in essence, it's really just you're consuming what your body needs, and as opposed to, you know, because that's the problem in Western culture and Western society, is that there's just that temptation to overeat is just there, and it's almost impossible to ignore as well, because it's just so easy to eat too much.
Well, that's right. That's right. But, you know, it's also the processing of food. You know, only 40 years ago, 30 or 40 years ago, you know, basically you almost bought everything fresh, even from supermarkets, you know. But today, a lot of things are processed. So, you know, you don't make your pasta sauce really from scratch anymore. You know, you buy something that's been processed and something else that's been processed. You might use fresh vegetables, fresh meat, but more and more there's, you know, stuff added in there. And it's this stuff that's added to it, which is the salt, which is the sugar, you know, that is like really playing havoc with our diets. And we don't realise. You can't taste the salt that's added in processed foods. And, you know, if we could reduce our salt intake by as little as 10 to 15% a day, which is tiny, it's less than, it's only about half a teaspoon worth of salt, then, you know, like you would actually save hundreds of thousands of lives around the world every year from stroke and heart disease. Yeah. Unbelievable, but it's true. They know.
Yeah, that's amazing. What about, we were just talking before we got on about, you know, there's all these places where you can look up diets and they can tell you how to do them, but they don't tell you what they feel like they're doing. And maybe we can tie this in with how you're saying with the mice diet that we were reading about. I mean, what's the point of maybe that is a diet all on its own? What would be the point of a lot of these types of things if it makes you feel like crap?
Well, that's a good point, and I think that's the one thing that is lost in terms of every diet book there is. You know, they tell you basically about how great you'll feel, how much weight you'll lose, and how wonderful eating beans for like 6 months it will be. But what they don't tell you is how to psychologically adjust for it. Now, if you've never had a meal ratio or a meal schedule like the ones that they're suggesting, then you might not really be able to adapt very well. And the mice diet is a great example. Yeah. The reason that people live longer on those very intensive calorie-reduced diets is because effectively it throws the body almost into a starvation situation. And what happens is the body has a genetic mechanism, which is a throwback to our evolution, that allows us to cope with famine. So when we were hunter-gatherers, if we couldn't get any food for a week or two, rather than our bodies just eating ourselves up and killing ourselves, this genetic mechanism allows for cell repair and actually repair of the DNA, which tends to happen and you get bad mutation if you're malnourished. Yeah. So it effectively allows the body to look after itself. But the trade-off is if you really want to live like that and live to be 120 or 130 thanks to this diet, you have to live in almost a state of starvation. That's ridiculous. Most people can't do it. I tried a very low-calorie diet administered clinically to me about 8 years ago, and I lasted about 3.5 weeks, and I just figured life wasn't worth living.
Well, there's the definitive answer on it then.
It was life, but it wasn't life as we know. It was basically like eating a couple of bowls of porridge a day.
Lovely.
Small bowls.
Sounds spectacular. Just on another point.
The highlight, Ben, was the vitamin pills for dessert.
Were they colourful at least?
They were colourful.
And I guess if we're still talking about rodents and tests that are done on them as far as diet, scientists have also found high-fat diets damage a crucial region of the brain that controls body weight. So there's that. that's almost like a vicious circle. If you're taking in high fat food, you're becoming fat. If it's also then doing something to your brain that accelerates that process, then you're on a fairly downward trajectory from there, I would think.
Well, that's right. Now, a lot of the systems in our body, such as this particular one where you're regulating, perhaps your food intake or fat intake, they're homeostatic, which means they're almost like a loop.
Yeah. Okay,
so you take in some fat, it triggers something off. It should trigger something in your brain that should trigger something else off to stop you eating. If you damage these loops through excess or by having too much of something, and of course you would expect that if you're enjoying doing something, it's going to have an effect on the brain somehow, even indirectly, well then effectively once you damage that feedback loop, you're just going to keep going. And that's obviously what's happening to these rodents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably what's happening to us.
Or maybe if we just watch Super Size Me or something like that and see what happens in 30 days of eating McDonald's, then that'll probably do it for you right there. Just all that high fat content just can't be good for you. And as we were saying before, that's just a pension of the society that we're living in Western societies. Is that it's okay that there's nothing to say it can't be there, but it's where the discipline of stopping yourself from eating that is really difficult. Any diet can be done. It's just that you've got to have that thought in your head. I'm not going to reach for the comfort food. That's a really, really hard thing to overcome.
You go back 2 or 3 generations, those who lived through the Depression, those who lived through the war, when there wasn't much food around. And they've done studies which show that body weights were a lot lower back then. People were actually, to a large extent, despite the lack of food, healthier. And that's pretty much because they couldn't have whatever they wanted. And we do eat comfort food, and you understand why. And we do probably overeat because we like to live well. And these are all things that are human nature. They're not inherently bad. But I do find it very strange that we live in a world where we're very mindful of body image, where we're very mindful of what we put in our bodies, and yet we can't say stop.
Yeah.
So, that's probably one of the big dangers for humans going forward. I mean, 2009 report into preventative health in Australia states that on our current trajectory, life expectancy for kids today is 2 years less than you and me, Ben, because of our diet. Who can believe that?
Yeah, that's just terrible. It's no good at all. Something really has to be done about that.
Well, that's it. Only get a small pizza tonight and a small bucket of chicken.
And then we'll move on to the celery sticks the night after that.
That's right.
Cool. Well, okay, that might be a good place to finish up. It's good to get together and kick off another season of FiST Chat. It's a good 2012, good start, and looking forward to this year. It should be a really cool year to get our teeth sunk into a lot of cool topics, I think.
That's right. We've had a few suggestions already on Facebook and through Twitter, so keep them coming in, FiST Chat fans. We can't wait to hear from you.
Absolutely. So don't forget our website, www.fistchat.com. You can get all our links there. Steve and I have got blogs coming this week on diet and aging, as we've humorously discussed today, or hopefully humorously. And it should all be good. So, again, thanks for tuning in for us for another year. Look forward to the rest of the year. That's it for this week's topic, so we'll catch you next week.